The secret to landing the board off isn't putting the board on faster. It's flying the kite correctly with one hand so that you actually have time to put it on. I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, "Mark, I can do the board off, I'm just not good at putting it back on." Sometimes that's true, but most kiters struggling with this trick actually aren't good enough at flying the kite with one hand to be able to do the board off. No offense.
It's true.
And if you master that, landing this trick becomes way easier. So give me your attention for a couple minutes. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to stick this trick. Oh yeah, be sure to watch till the end for my practical tips. They're really good, I promise. In this video, I will teach you the correct kite movement, the secret to holding your bar correctly, the step-by-step process for learning your first board off, how high you need to go, why you don't need to be super flexible, and I'm gonna give you practical tips to help you nail this trick. Let's start by learning the kite movement. Broadly speaking, there are two ways to do a board off. Method one is to do a basic jump, leaving the kite behind you and taking the board off with the backhand. You can land this jump without a heli loop, or you can land it with a heli loop. Method two is to do a scent jump, meaning that we steer the kite forward into the window and take the board off with our front hand. And then we land with a backhand heli loop. For your first board offs, you should learn method one because you are simply adding a board off to your regular jump. In your regular jump, you should jump vertically, and near the apex of your jump, you steer the kite back in the direction you came from. Keep the kite there whilst you fall towards the water. This makes you pendulum back under the kite. And then you land by steering the kite slowly through 12 o'clock at the very last moment. If you don't know how to land big jumps like this, then you should watch this video. So let me show you the two most common mistakes that people make with kite movement when they're going for the board off. So you're downwind of me and the wind is blowing this way. I've got my kite at 1 o'clock because I'm going to do a board off with my back hand, with the right hand. So the most common mistake, number one, is that when people take the board off, they let the bar out because they're so busy focusing on getting the board off, they don't apply enough pressure to the bar to keep it sheeted in. And then can you guess what happens? If you guess that you drop quickly, you're right. So instead of having a nice big floaty jump with lots of time to do the board off, you just drop like a stone and then you don't have the time to put the board back on. Now for mistake number two, remember that I want to keep my kite behind me. So if I'm jumping to the left, I want to keep it at 1 o'clock whilst I'm doing the board off. Well, mistake number two is whilst I'm taking the board off, I apply too much pressure to this side of the bar. And as a result, I end up pulling the kite from 1 through 12 to 11 and eventually to 10 o'clock and crash into the water like this. So let me teach you the secret to holding your bar correctly so that you can do a nice, big, safe board off. You need to learn to apply pressure to this side of the bar using this hand. So how do you do that? You need to keep your elbow high and you need to apply pressure to the inside of the bar using these pads of your fingers, the pads of your index and middle finger. So by keeping my elbow nice and high and applying pressure right here by the center lines, I'm actually able to pull on this side of the bar. If my elbow is down and I'm just pulling the bar in, I'm probably going to pull that kite along the edge of the window. So now before you go and do your board offs, you need to learn how to fly the kite correctly with one hand. And in order to do that, I recommend that you follow this step-by-step process. If you're ready for my awesome step-by-step process, then smash that subscribe button. Step one, taking the hand off the bar. Practice doing big jumps and taking your back hand off the bar near the apex. Focus on keeping the kite behind you, so at 1 o'clock if you're jumping to the left. Keep your hand off as long as you can handle, putting your hand back on just in time to control the kite and land the jump. It's important that after you jump, you don't let the bar out because it's hard to get the bar back in. And remember to hold the bar just how I showed you. Step one is actually very difficult, so my students typically spend a lot of time working on this. When you see how difficult it is to fly the kite with one hand, you will understand why you need to develop this fundamental skill before you start taking the board off. So expect to spend a lot of time here and be honest with yourself. Are you managing to keep the bar sheeted in all the way? And are you managing to apply enough pressure to the other side of the bar so that the kite stays behind you? Step 2, reaching for the handle. Once you're comfortable with step 1, then step 2 is to start bringing the board up and reaching for the handle. But don't take the board off yet. Again, be mindful of keeping the kite behind you and keeping that bar sheeted in. Let me teach you how to use momentum to make it easy to reach the handle.
So when you pop, your legs are naturally going to swing forward the same way they do when I do a pull-up. Now you're going to use that swing forward to get your feet nice and high so that you can grab the handle. That's going to put the handle nice and close to your face, so you don't actually need to be flexible to reach the handle because you're using all that momentum to bring the handle up to your hand. You don't need to be able to reach down far to grab it.
Step 3, taking the board off. Once you are comfortable with step 2, then step 3 is to practice taking the board off, flying the kite with one hand for a while, and then dropping the board and crash landing. If you are able to do this without steering the kite incorrectly, then you are ready for step 4, which is putting the board on. It's helpful to practice taking the board off and putting it on the land so that you're familiar with how wide your straps are and getting your feet into the straps.
The way you grip the handle is actually quite important. If I grip it like this, with my knuckles pointing forward over there, look at this. When I try to put the board on, it's hard for me to open the straps up to be able to access them. But if I shift my grip a little bit over and I have my knuckles pointing a little bit more towards the board, then I'm able to open the board up. You see, I can change the angle of the board like this. And I can open it up so that I can get my feet in. So I would encourage you to grip it something close to this, not knuckles pointing all the way to the board, but something a little bit like that. And then you can have plenty of maneuverability over the handle. And also, don't get a soft handle. If your handle's very soft, whatever force you exert on the board won't directly control where the board goes. So I see sometimes these soft foam handles, and yeah, those are just shit. It's okay if you have a rigid foam handle, but something soft that's malleable, not good.
So how high do you need to go? Let's look at a couple of my jumps which I measured with the SURFR app to find out. Now you might think that you need to do a pretty big jump to do a board off, like this 9.2 meter high one, but you actually don't need to go that high. If you're really good at putting the board on, you can even do them as low as 4.7 meters, like this one. Admittedly, you've got to be pretty fast if you're going under 5 meters. I think 6 to 7 meters should be your target height for your first board offs, as you can achieve this height without riding out of control, and it should give you adequate airtime.
So you don't need to jump super high to do a board off, but it does help to have a nice floaty jump with lots of airtime. Now you can measure your airtime as well as your jump height and distance using the SURFR app. You can get it for your smartwatch like the Apple Watch or Android watches, and you can also measure your jumps using your smartphone in a waterproof pouch. It is hands down the most popular app in kitesurfing, and you can get it for free by scanning this QR code. Trust me, you're gonna love it. Check it out. So let me give you some other epic tips that are gonna help you nail these board offs. I recommend that you learn on a 5-striped bow delta shape like the Core XR. Kites like this are great because they help you jump high, they give you lots of hang time, and they give you very soft landings. In particular, I recommend a 10 meter or bigger because they're very stable, they're not as twitchy, and if you're riding in 10 meter wind or 12 meter wind, it's gonna be pretty safe. You're not gonna have super bad crashes, whereas if you're riding pretty powered on a 7 meter, chances are it's strong ass wind and the crashes are gonna hurt. If you haven't watched my how to crash video, then I suggest that you watch it. I'm gonna put the link down below. But otherwise, let me give you some pointers on crashing. Before you do any board offs, test the water depth and make sure it's free of hazards. Be careful about landing on the board because it can really hurt. So when you're coming in and you're crashing the board off, if you're not gonna land it, throw the board out to the side or even kick it away. You definitely want to avoid having one foot in a strap because the board can go one way whilst your body goes the other way, and that can twist your knee or your ankle. and really do some damage. I strongly recommend wearing a helmet because you can get wrecked by the board hitting you in the head. You might find it helpful to get a big air handle. Most big air kiters these days are using these handles because they do give you a little bit of an advantage. Now, I know your goal is to be doing nice big extensions and looking like a badass, but you don't need to start there. I suggest that you start with small board offs and a small extension and try get your feet back in the straps as quickly as possible. As you get better and better at them, try and do longer extensions and point your toes just to demonstrate that you're fully in control and to make this trick as stylish as possible. If you take the board off right in front of you, then the bar is going to be in your way. So I recommend that you twist your hips back in the direction you came from so that you can take the board off without the bar being in your way. Take the board off before the apex of your jump. It's going to make it way easier to get that board off. Thank you so much to my patrons. If you want to support me, then you can go to Patreon by scanning this QR code. Thank you so much for watching. If you got any questions, drop them in the comments. Otherwise, I made another video for you and you can watch that one over here and you can subscribe over here. Muchos besos and adios.